Subscribe to this podcast to get exclusive access to the after show Shooting the Breeze. Welcome to Cool Explorations. I'm your host, Tony Peters. Today we're going to be speaking to Don and Donna from the Kairos program that we just interviewed yesterday, Kairos Prison Ministry International. They've been through the program and they want to tell it from both the prisoner side as well as the family of the prisoner side and explain how that whole process works. Hello and welcome to Cool Explorations. I'm your host, Tony Peters. Today we have Dawn and Donna here, and they are going to tell us a little about Kairos Prison Ministry International, as well as what their experiences have been like with that. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourselves briefly?
Well, my name is Dawnya Wineinger, and I live in Hallsville, Texas, and work as a behavior assistant at the high school.
I'm Don Weineinger. This is my wife, and I do construction work.
And in our free time, we do Kairos Prison Ministry, which is a ministry for women who, well, it's a ministry for anyone who has been impacted by incarceration. But we work in the Kairos Outside, which is a ministry for women who are impacted because their son's daughter, they're the aunt of someone who has gone inside.
Yeah, and that's really important work for each of that. Why don't we get you guys to share a little about your testimonies, starting with you, Dawnya, and then we'll get Dawn to share.
Okay. Well, the reason that I am so involved with Kairos Outside is because when I became a prison wife, it was incredibly frustrating and scary for me. I had, grown up, never had anybody incarcerated in my life, and didn't know anybody who had ever been incarcerated before. Those people were bad. Just in the way that I was raised, that just was the mindset. And so, Dawn and I got married, and about 4 months later, he was arrested. And he knew that he was going to be, so I kind of knew that he was, but I was not prepared at all. And being thrown into it, I didn't know a lot of the lingo. I didn't know what the expectations were. And it was scary. I mean, that's all I can say. It was super scary. And it took about a year before we found Kairos. My church was super supportive, and, my family was supportive, but they didn't know anything either. But Don got to his home base. I don't know what
Home
unit, and he found out that he had missed the Kairos cookies by a week. And they said, "Man, if you were here a week earlier, you would have got home baked cookies." And so Don, of course, called me as soon as he was allowed. There's a lapse there. And the first thing he said was, "So what is Kairos?" And I had no idea. So I said, "Well, I'll find it out." And I did. I found out that it was a ministry that actually reaches out to those who were impacted by incarceration. And I said, "You know what? I know. I knew that God would not have just deserted me. I knew that. And for the year, I knew that he was with me. But just the fact that I knew that he had already prepared the way for me. It was just amazing." Yeah. So I went ahead and signed up to work the weekend. I thought I was working the weekend. I had no idea. And then I told Dawn about Kairos.
So she told me about the Kairos, and I got super mad. She told me she was going to work it, and the first thing I could think of is, "No, you're not coming in this prison." I mean, I just seen someone get killed not long before that, and I'm like, "No, you're not coming in here." And she went ahead and did it, of course.
Of course. Mm-hmm.
But I'm glad she did. The Kairos, it's just amazing ministry. I mean, amazing ministry. And I'm going to start off a little bit with my story. As she said, I called her, and you know, them cookies was a big deal. I mean, it really was. I didn't realize how big of a deal it was, but they implanted seeds in all these prisoners. I mean, that was their seed to get Kairos out. And if it wasn't for them cookies or my cellie, I would have never knew about Kairos. And man, when I was in prison, I was terrible. I went off. I left my wife. She paid everything. I was very demanding. Hey, give me food in here. I didn't like their food. All I could think about is commissary. I didn't think about her. I mean, after it was all said and done, I'm glad she did go. But it makes you realize what kind of a person you really are when you're inside. I mean, all you do is you think of yourself. I don't know that everybody did, but I did.
No, and we can all be that way sometimes, for sure. Yeah, that is our society. It's a me society. It's all about me and what benefits me.
Right.
And when you're in a tough situation, yeah, then it can put you in that position, exactly like what you're describing, where you start thinking about yourself and you're not seeing your spouse, so you're not seeing how it's impacting them. So it's understandable, and you'd be frustrated being in that situation as well. So there's a lot of feelings to deal with.
Then also I'm sitting on my bunk, and this is what broke me down. This is what got me in Cairo. I was against her going. I really didn't want nothing to do with it at the time. But I'm sitting in my bunk, and we get the little prison letters every month.
The Echo.
The Echo. And I'm reading this about Kairos, about women on the outside, and I'm like, oh my God, that sounds like me. I love my wife. She had everything. Like I said, she had everything. But then it started telling you about they're in lockdown just like we are. I mean, maybe they're not handcuffed in the bars. And it just kept on going about all this stuff. Well, when I got to the end of it, it was done by my wife.
They had interviewed me, and I don't even know if I told you they'd interviewed me. So that was quite a shock for him.
And that's what brought me to my knees.
And God finds those times when he knows when the right time is and what we need to hear.
Exactly.
So what originally got you arrested, Dawn? And when you were first in prison, what was that experience like for you? I know you've talked a little bit about it, but what was the experience like when you first got there?
When I first got there, I was scared. I hear all these people, man, you gotta watch it. They'll kill you in a heartbeat. They'll beat you up. I mean, I'm a pretty good sized guy, but there's guys in there that's huge. I can handle my own, but that wasn't what I was wanting. The being inside part was humiliating, I guess what I should say. All in one word, humiliating.
Yeah. So for you, Dawnya, what was it like when you first found out that he was going to be going into prison? And then what did that journey look like for you right before Kairos and then after Kairos? How did that change you?
Well, we knew before he went, and it was a probation violation is what got him put in there. And so we knew that it was just a matter of time. They just had to do the paperwork. And so we tried to he tried to turn himself in several times. So I had a little bit more preparation, I guess, than I would have otherwise. But twice we tried to turn ourselves in, and then turn yourself in. Finally, the warrant was issued, and they would accept him. And we had traveled to Greenville to see his grandmother because he knew he wasn't going to see her for a while, maybe not ever, which he never did. But on the way back, we got stuck behind an 18-wheeler that had overturned. And so there's this warrant out for him, and he wasn't available. When we finally made it back to Dallas, the police, his stepmother called and said, the police are here looking for you. We got there. They had guns drawn, and he was, he had his medicine. Anyways, it was so traumatic to have it pulled on me. I'd never, I'd never had anything like this ever happen. And so that was the beginning of it. And I think that's what colored everything that went past it. So going in, finding out that you have to stand outside for 2 hours in order to get a 20-minute visit. And then whenever you go in, you get patted down, like people were touching me, and I had to take off. And that was so traumatic for me because I had never, I didn't even see that in TV shows. It was just so foreign to me. And then, of course, just seeing him for 20 minutes and then hearing Donna has seizures, and he would have the medicine didn't go in quite the way it should have. So he was having seizure after seizure, and finding out about that and having to figure out who do I contact and what do I do. It was a miserable year, And my church family, they'd be like, "Oh, how's Dawn doing? How's Dawn?" And it's like, okay, do you have an hour? Because I can fill you in, and it would be great. Or do I just say, "Oh, well, he's fine. He's doing okay. He's here. He's getting fed," and things like that. So, yeah, it was a pretty traumatic year before I found Kairos. But then when I did find Kairos, I ended up being a guest on that weekend instead of working it, to find people who knew exactly what I meant. When I said, "Oh, he's okay, but he's an ADSEG," and they'd be like, "Oh, what happened?" They actually understood exactly what I was saying. And that was such a relief after that year. It's incredible.
Yeah, and I understand the seizures part because I have seizures as well. Mine, there's no medication for mine. It's just I have pain that overloads the pain neurons, and then it triggers stress seizures. So I understand where you're coming from there, and it can be very, very frustrating. that, and when you're in a situation where it's a matter of them not giving you the meds like you should, that would be even more frustrating.
And then when she did get the right person, I mean, what's the thing? But when she did get the right person, she did. She got the right person, and they called to the prison. Then when I went in, they called me over. So, you gonna call your wife ever again? I mean, I was locked up in the hole for like 2 weeks because I called my wife.
That's when he was in Ed Seg. Just
Mhm.
because he called me and I contacted the people in charge. And so, yeah, it was not a good thing. It was, yeah, not a good thing.
Not at all.
But did it result in you getting your medication? Is that what the end result was, or?
No, I mean, I think they cut my medication when I went in. They cut it way down from what I was supposed to be taking.
Because it was all punishment for telling me what was happening.
Yeah, that it's scary, the corruption that you definitely see going on there.
Don't get me wrong. There are some good guards in there, but some of them not so good.
Yeah, it can be a bit of a power trip.
Mhm.
Yeah, but it is like that with police or any organization that you're in. Some of them are good, some of them are
Right.
more that power hungry. And
Right.
I've experienced both when I've been pulled over, the power hungry ones and the ones that are more just friendly and nice, and you can just chat with them.
Right.
So when you came to know Kairos Prison Ministry, what was that experience like for both of you, but especially Dawn when you were in prison? Because I know you were a little bit more resistant to it at first.
Um. Actually, I wanted to go to the Kairos, mainly for the food. They give you 3 days of, just food that you've never had inside prison. So that was 3 years of not having decent food. But that's when I signed up. That's all I could think of as the food. In between then, Dawnya went to it on the outside. And when my wife come to see me, she didn't say I need to see Don Weineinger. She had to give him a number. They that was hard for her. And inside, you're the same thing. They treat you the same. 1795723, come to the pod or whatever. But when I actually went to the Kairos, these guys came in with love. Nothing, I could say nothing but love. And as I mean love, I'm not talking about here's food, here you go. I'm talking about they put your arm around you and say, man, it's going to be okay. They talk to you. For the first time in 3 years, I actually had somebody human talking to you. Not no boss man, I should say.
Mhm.
That's what we call the. And not only was they talking to you, man, they was listening. They listened to what you had to say. And they didn't care what I'd done. I could have killed somebody. They really wouldn't have cared. But for 3 days straight, yes, we went to a project night. We had talks. We all sat by tables inside, just like they do on the outside. We had all kind of talks about can't even remember what it was about, but it was all I can say is some guys cared, and they made a role model out of me. When I got out, that's what I wanted to do. Have I been to one? No, I haven't. I haven't been back inside besides going to closings and stuff like that for Kairos. But I knew when I got out, I wanted to follow Christ, of course, but I wanted to follow Kairos. I followed Kairos, and I can't tell you how many times I've been on meeting team since I've got out. This is one thing that refreshes you every time you go to these team meetings and to these weekends. It reminds you of all the love that people showed you when you was inside, and that's what it makes you want to do. And when I first got out, that's all I could think of is going back inside, until I went with my wife to a team meeting, and then we went to a weekend, and I'm like, wow, I actually seen the kind of love they showed her. And the ladies couldn't, I ain't gonna say they can't do it without guys, but the guys are very important to the ladies there. They do the kitchen work and the help setting up. But man, I get to show the love that they showed me.
Yeah, that's amazing. So Dawnya, now what was your experience like once you'd already been introduced into Kairos, and how did that really help you throughout his incarceration?
Well, it was amazing to me. Like I said, mostly, it reaffirmed the fact that God never leaves us or forsakes us. And so knowing that, it really helped me spiritually. And then when I went on the weekend and I was actually a guest, seeing not just the agape, the things that they give to you, and the time that they spend with you. I mean, all of that was wonderful. But hearing the stories of ladies who have been where I was sitting right then, was amazing. And then I found other ladies who had husbands who were incarcerated, and they couldn't answer my questions. Like, okay, so I contacted this individual because of his seizures, and this happened, and they were like, okay, so you need to get involved with TIFA, which is the Inmate and Family Texas Inmate Family Association. You need to do this and you need to do this, and that kind of support. And they held my hand through the rest of it. Every just about every obstacle, I could go to my sisters and say, this is happening and I don't know what to do. And they were there. They were there for me.
She made some really tremendous friends.
Yeah, and that support definitely would be important. We all need support in our walk with Christ, and throughout our life, and having that support system in place and that kind of trial would be definitely something that would stick with you.
And accountability.
Yeah.
They keep me accountable, with the whole, with him coming out, that's a whole nother can of worms. Whenever, after they've been incarcerated for so long, they get this, they have this mentality, and then of course we have to prepare the way for them to come home, and they've got to get social security numbers and driver's license. I mean, they've got to do all of these things. It's just kind of amazing. And they keep me accountable whenever I'm like, I can't do this anymore. This is just crazy. They can say, hey, have you been praying for him? Are you doing this? Making sure that I am keeping myself where I need to be so that I can minister to him. Because when he first came out, he was a mess. He was a mess. There's no word for it. And he wasn't even incarcerated as long as some people are. And so, yeah, it was good. It was good. And it helped us get through it until he was able to kind of level off and re-enter society again, and all of that stuff.
Yeah. And what was that process like? They getting out and then getting, like you said, reintegrated back into society, and what was that process like?
Well, in the beginning, before he was to come out, we were given a 3 months head up. I think he had to take classes, and so I had to get just basically hygiene items and clothes and stuff for him because of his different things, and just for him to come home. After about a week, I guess, he was able to start going to people's houses or to the store and not, just be like, whoa, this is not okay. Because like Walmart was a huge deal to have all the people, just in your bubble all the time. It was a huge, huge ordeal. And so once he was able to get out, he went to church, and that's when he was the pastor talked to him. Was it the pastor, Brother Lloyd, about getting a job? And before he came out, the pastor had to make sure that it was okay that he came to the church, and so they had meetings and all of that. So he was well known. It was, people knew. So anyways, he got a job, which was helpful. He got his social, and he doesn't have a driver's license because of his seizures. So we didn't have to worry about that.
I can't drive either.
Yeah.
But I was 350 miles away from her. And what I was saying about her friends, man, she didn't have a car. Our car wasn't worth anything, but they brought her all the way over there to see me. I mean, she met some of the best friends she's ever had in her life. Now, as far as me coming home, man, it was weird for me. I mean, weird. Like she said, when we go to Walmart, man, I'm looking over my back. I mean, all the time, everywhere I go. And prison just does that to you because you're having to watch your back all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, and I myself don't like a lot of crowded places. I'm not much for crowds. I had my own trauma growing up that's just really turned me off of crowds and that. So I get a little bit about that, but the looking over your shoulder part is definitely would be something that would be hard to overcome and adjust.
It still is.
Yeah. And how did God help you overcome that process? Like, how is he involved in all that for you?
He's since I've been in, he's led my way. Since I gave my life to him, he's led my way. And there were so many times, even when I came home, I'm like, I can't do it. I can't do this. But every time I talked to him, and I got through it. There was a time. Sorry. There was a time. My wife don't even know it. There was a time where, when I first came home, I was fixing to leave because I couldn't handle it. And I prayed about it. I prayed about it. But this lady right here, I mean, that's all I could hear God saying. And where was she this whole time when you was out, when you was inside? So only thing I can say is God held my hand the whole way through, and He still is. Because man, it's not easy at all when you come home. Even to this day, it's not easy for us. But
Yeah.
with God, we got it made. We're gonna do it.
And it's amazing how He has prepared the way before us. I mean, he knew what was going to happen, and He shows us that. I mentioned the church had this big meeting because of insurance or whatever about having him at the church, and there were some people at the church who were like, "Oh no, there's no way we could have this person be, in our church," and yada yada yada. And then when it was decided that he was coming, they were like, "Well, fine," And it's kind of hysterical because it's a complete change now. After they got to know him and God has worked in their hearts, they call him a brother. I mean, it's not uncommon for for us to come to church, and he's the person who is, talking to people and shaking hands, and and he's in security at the church. That's one of his jobs, is to secure the outside, and he's very good at it because he has a little bit more knowledge than some people do. But it's amazing. God has really changed people's hearts right in front of me. It's been amazing.
3 of them that didn't want me there are my best friends now.
Yeah, it is sad that in the church that tends to be the way things go with not everybody, but with some people within the church, and it comes down to judgment. They're thinking that they're a little better than you, or that their sin is not as bad as yours, but in God's eyes all of our sins are equal, and that is something He would work on in their hearts, is coming to that realization that I've sinned too.
I've had one of them come up to me and told me, cried on me and said, "I'm sorry. I was the one that didn't want you here." And I work for him a lot now. I'm his brother to him.
Yeah, that's amazing. And only God can.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. God leads our hands.
Only God.
Yeah. So what is God currently doing in your lives now that you're out and you're out with been involved with Kairos? How's He working in your life right now?
Right now, He's working great. We both work at a food pantry, and we get to show our love there.
We volunteer. We don't actually work there.
Well,
we just spend a lot of time there.
And then we often sometimes go to churches and we tell people about Kairos. And it's got me out of the point of, I was always a shy one. Man, you couldn't get me to talk about God for nothing. It's opened me up so I can talk about God. And when you talk about Kairos, you're talking about God. I mean, am I reading stuff right straight out of the Bible? No. How do I say that? Okay, I believe straight in the Bible, what I'm trying to say. And just talking about Kairos, that opens it up to, well, what church do you go to? Or what do you do? Or, hey, why don't you come to our church? And so, yeah, God's got me where he wants me. That's for sure.
Yeah, and God does find ways of putting you out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
But before this, politics was my shtick. So I was interviewing all kinds of politicians and stuff. And faith was definitely not something I discussed or was he comfortable with. And then God kind of brought me to my knees and was like, this is no longer your channel, it's my channel. And this is the direction you're taking. And I'm like, well, I'm not comfortable with that. And it's like, well, get comfortable with it.
Right.
Yes.
So for you, what advice would you have for those who have family who are in prison? Either you could answer that, but Dawnya, you might be a little bit more prepared to speak to that. What advice would you have for them?
For someone who has somebody incarcerated, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
I think first of all, my advice to them is to not take it personally, and which means just because Bobby did something wrong and was incarcerated, that doesn't mean that you are a bad mother or you are a bad aunt or you did anything wrong that caused Bobby to make this decision. It's free will. God gave us all free will. So there's nothing wrong with you. Don't take this personally. It's not your fault. That would be the first thing that I would say. And with that, I would tell them, there are people who know where you're at. There are people who love you. We have several weekends that are provided for you free of charge. Please just come try, just a weekend. That's all. That's all. Just come and see what God has prepared for you. And it will be amazing. And that I think would be my advice. Just those two things.
Yeah, I think that's great advice.
My advice would be love the one that's coming home. I've lost a lot of family, and some of them I still don't talk to. Don't let that get in the way. Man, we mess up. Everybody messes up. Mm-hmm. The only difference between me and the guards is they didn't get caught. I did. Love that inmate. Show him the love. So, because a lot of times they push you away, and you go back doing the same thing.
Yeah. Well, and you see a lot of prisoners when they come out, like you say, they can't handle it. They just feel like it's too much, and they actually do things to go back to prison. Some of them intentionally, because now that's what they know, which is sad. And I guess that comes from maybe a lack of support system, or they're just not feeling like they have a support system, even though people are there trying to help them. Like you say, they push them away. And sometimes we do that to protect. We think we're protecting them, but all we're really doing is harming ourselves, is what we're doing, and punishing ourselves further. So,
and whether they realize it or not, the family, that is their support system when they first come home.
Yeah.
That is true. I have heard whenever I went to go pick Donna up, it was a 3.5 hour drive, and then I had to wait a couple of hours before he was released. And it was very sad, the amount of people who were released from prison who had nobody. They had nobody. And, one of the ladies that was there, because they have to watch everything that we do, she said that the ones that go home on a bus or they don't have anybody, they're the ones who will be back. Most of the time, they're the ones who will be back.
That is so sad. So very sad. Thank you guys for speaking with us and sharing with us. It's been very enlightening. You're welcome back on the channel anytime if you ever have anything you want to share. So thank you.
Thank you.
And God bless your continued journey with him and your growth.
We appreciate what you do too, man.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to Cool Explorations. You've just been listening to Don and Dawna from the Kairos Prison Ministry International Program, speaking about how the program worked from both the prisoner's side as well as the family of the prisoner's side, and how God has been at work through that whole process. If you'd like to contact me for any reason, you can do so at tpeters745@gmail.com. Well, I have just been blessed with so many people who are requesting to be on the show, and I'm impressed with how many people want to share their testimonies or what they're doing for the Lord right now. If I haven't got back to you, I promise I will get back to you. I look forward to speaking with each of you and interviewing you, and keep tuning into the show. There's lots of new people that are coming on here, and if you're considering wanting to come on the show, just shoot me an email at tpeters745@gmail.com, and I will get back to you.